All right, I'd like to welcome Rod and John to the stage for our feature panel.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I didn't realize at all, is this volume good, Paul? Volume? Is the volume, or is it just because people are loud? Is the volume good? Yeah, you can't even hear me. I'm talking in the mic, so probably speakers are low. Okay, cool. At Me Premier Bitcoin events, they give away 1 Bitcoin. I cannot believe this stuff. Whoever talks the last has to give away the Bitcoin to somebody. So it gets this gentleman in the front row right here. Thank you. New tradition. So my address is BC1Q5 9er. No, this is awesome. John, thank you.
Thank you. Whoa, jeez.
I need that mic, and you need this one.
Yeah. Okay. You want to switch? No.
No, we're good. Go for it.
Okay. Cool. So this first part is just a fireside chat between Rob and I. We'll talk about Me Premier Bitcoin. We'll talk about Bitcoin Park. Maybe some deeper background for you guys. It's just a conversation between us about these two projects, with maybe a common theme of how we're both supporting education and supporting the community here. And actually, I want to bring up a comment that Quentin, I don't know where Quentin is. Is Quentin here? No. Okay. He said this to me yesterday, and I think it's really relevant today and every day, but maybe specifically for this conversation. He was very excited about yesterday, about hearing everybody's stories, all the work that everybody is doing all over the place, right? And what Quentin said yesterday is we were looking around and like, wow, a lot of people brought up My First Bitcoin or Me Premier Bitcoin at the event yesterday. And some of it we kind of expected because it's people that like we have direct contact with, but some of it was like, oh, we've never met these people, and like they find stuff that we produced useful, and that's amazing. And what he said, it was like a revelation. Like too bad he's not here, but he said, this is who we work for. We work for everyone here. This is our job. Like, this is who we need to support. This is who we're working for. This is why we're doing this. And I think there's similarities between Me Premier Bitcoin and Bitcoin Park in that sense. Like, we are here to serve the community for both, to create this space and bring people into the space, or to create these resources, these educational resources that people could use. I think that's something that is a theme of these days here at Bitcoin Park, but a theme of both of these projects is we are here for you. We work for you. So maybe that's a good starting point. I don't So with that in mind, with that context, could you, Rob, give us just like a elevator pitch? What is Bitcoin Park? What's the vision here?
Yeah, thank you, John. First of all, who's first time ever here at Bitcoin Park? Rock and roll. Oh, wow. That's a lot of people. Thank you. Huge round of applause to you guys. That's freaking awesome. You volunteer and you can get one of them. So actually, a quick tangent. We should probably start selling merch, but we decided early on, Matt and I, that we weren't going to sell the merch. We were going to actually give it as part of the membership subscription. But more importantly, we just have deviated just to volunteers. So anytime you volunteer, you get a T-shirt or a hoodie or a custom hoodie, depending on the summit. And it's been pretty cool to see a lot of our volunteers, like Timo in the back and others, like Scott actually as well. Like, they rock them randomly, unless you're Mike and you give it to an ex-girlfriend and she takes it and runs away with it. But it's pretty cool. So maybe one day as a new revenue stream. But Bitcoin Park has just been an unbelievable idea that's turned into a project that's turned into a passion. And it started with just a simple meetup. It started with 20 of us just sitting outside on a rainy day in August of, I think it was 2021 or 2022. No, sorry, 2021. And then almost a year later, from 20 people to 50 people to 100 plus people to 200 plus people, we were filling out this local bar. And we're like, we need our own dedicated space. And this is how Bitcoin Park came about. So it's a place for Bitcoiners to work, learn, collaborate, and build. Our mission, which is kind of aligned with you guys at the top of the funnel, is to provide a resource for our local community for grassroots freedom tech and Bitcoin adoption. So like last night, who was here for the open house last night with Evan? Heck yeah. Was that pretty good last night? Yeah, okay, cool. Evan's such a legend. So we're able to invite guest speakers like that at that level. And those that just RSVP and show up get to participate in something that I don't even know what the economic or ticketed value of something like that could be, and potentially changing people's lives. And so we do a lot of that. Our meetup page now is like about 2,500 people. We started it in, 2021, but 2022 really. And it's grown crazy. And then it's really the backbone is our individual members that pay an annual membership fee to support all of these free and open initiatives. Show of hands real quick. Who's a individual Bitcoin Park member? We got Scott, Jason, Eric, John. Thank you very much. Huge round of applause for these guys. I'm really proud that for 3 years we've kept the annual membership fees this flat, kept the cap still on the membership side. And then we've had company supporters come in and support us as well. Simplicity wins in these models. I've found, to the gentleman in the back that was like, hey, how can I buy this merch? Even that, which seems like a good revenue stream, just the mental debt of managing inventory, doing that, getting the orders, and then fulfilling, it's just such a workload that I'm like, dude, annual upfront, just pay the bill. That's it. Let me go do and host these awesome meetups. Honestly, this has been over my wildest expectations. I didn't think we were going to open up a second location. We did that on February 1 in Austin, Texas, which has been awesome. Thank you. But this allows it, the individual memberships as well as the company supporters allow us to do a week like this, which hopefully we can do every year from now on out, which is Grassroots Bitcoin Week, which is dedicated to meetup organizers and educators to bring them all here to Nashville, Tennessee, to just jam, to be inspired by each other, to learn from each other, and then grow from there.
That's awesome. Thank you, Rod. And maybe I'll give a elevator pitch of Meet Mer Bitcoin to we are, it's funny because I think we do have a lot in common, but then there's so much that's different about the two projects.
Yeah, this is where it's really interesting because yesterday everyone was like, oh, I'm a 501c3. I started a 501c3. I'm like, dude, that is so amazing. Also so, it's like another hole in my head just to go through that compliance, the documentation, all of that stuff. So we're a for-profit, simple LLC that's just strictly hey, pay, service, fulfill, this is our mission. Simple enough. But a lot of you guys out there, amazing, have all these 501c3s that you have boards, you have memos, you have all this other stuff. I mean, I'm just curious, I get the mission, but why keep it a nonprofit and not maybe make it a for-profit to make your life easier?
Yeah, good question. And if fundraising becomes one of the topics later, then I'm sure this will come up again. We are Meet Mer Bitcoin is a nonprofit. We have registration in El Salvador, but also in the U.S. We're also a 501c3. The initial reason for doing that was we feel very strongly that Bitcoin education needs to be independent and impartial, and students need to know that we don't have ulterior motives, right? There's a lot of mistrust around money. People are looking for a reason to not listen to what you're saying about Bitcoin, about money in generally, but specifically about Bitcoin. And it seemed like that was one excuse we could take off the table. You guys have selfish motivations. You're just trying to make money off of teaching us about Bitcoin or whatever. And I think that's one of the reasons why Me Premier Bitcoin has been successful, is because of our independence and our impartiality. I think that has over time become very clear to people that pay attention, that our motivation is education. Like, we don't have any other motivations. But it also, on a more practical level, our funding is from two main sources. One of them, and both of them are enabled by being a nonprofit. One of them is grants. So we get grants from organizations such as the Human Rights Foundation and OpenSats, and so it depends on the grant organization. Probably a better example would be, I don't know if they require it, but a better example, we get a grant from Block, right? They need it to be a 501c3. They can't give us a grant if we don't have that status. So it opens up more grants to us being a 501c3. And then the other main source of our funding, actually the primary source of our funding, is the community. It's people such as yourselves that donate, and that was intentional. And I think Bitcoin Park and Me Premier Bitcoin, we've arrived at the same conclusion, that we work for you guys
100%.
But there is a theory that I think we're seeing playing out, that Bitcoin education on a long enough timeline will be captured by whoever funds it. So if we were funded by a government or a corporation, then that would inevitably influence how we approach education, right? It's like, well, we can't say this thing about the government, or we can't, or we should promote this specific product, or it would work its way into that, probably subconsciously, like, oh, we want to get another sponsorship from these guys, so okay, let's say include them in the next edition, or say something nice. And that's what I was saying about Quentin earlier. We could just not tell him what we talked about. No, we were talking about a comment that you made yesterday. That's it. That was such an amazing, full circle kind of moment, where when he was saying, this is who we work for the people here, it was a different way of saying, but I mean it positively, we're captured by the community, right? We work for them. If we do a bad job, people are going to stop donating to us. If we do a good job, we're going to get more donations. So we decided early on, we're going to be captured by something. What do we want to be captured by? And it's you. This is who we want to be indebted to. We want to be indebted to the community.
Totally. And I think that's where it's on the individual members, it's just a different way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Thousands upon thousands of donations, and I don't know what percent of 100%, what percent you're focused on just fundraising, right? That just seems like a lot of time. You got to put material out there. Every single day, I'm earning the trust of the individual members, because they can just say, I'm canceling, and I'm just moving on. Yeah. And so knowing how that is, but yet it's awesome because there's now hundreds of individual members. So unfortunately, if one of them left for any reason, like, hey, I'm leaving town, or this, or just, my time's up, no worries. But there's, consistently getting more. And that's where doing the free and open meetups is it's good business too. The high quality, high signals gives me energy, it inspires me. I love doing it. So if I'm able to align what I love to do, and it's valuable to Bitcoin and the community, ultimately there's a good business there. That's why, a lot of people, I think, mess up on the nonprofit and the for-profit world. On the nonprofit world, they just accept, especially when big dollars come in, they're like, all right, cool, I'm going to take it, and so on, without clearly stating the mission and sticking to that mission. Yeah. where it's like ours is just clearly focused. You know, if you were here at the meetup last night, I did the general guidelines focused on Bitcoin and not crypto, NFTs, LFTs, gold. By the way, LFTs, one time, a quick tangent, I'm doing this thing and Odell comes up to me afterwards. He's like, all right, what's an LFT? I was like, I just made it up, man.
I was wondering the same thing. I don't know what that is.
And but there's another meetup for that. We're focused on Bitcoin, and that's okay if some people are gonna like self-select out. It's okay if oh man, that's a $6K membership fee that they could just leave. It's like we get one bad apple in our individual membership. Like the culture of Bitcoin Park can slowly decay and erode over time. On the converse side is if you're adding people like a John Dennehy, a Scott Porter, and all these amazing Bitcoiners one by one, that foundation of Bitcoin Park compounds to something where when it's so amazing when I was in like Nairobi, Kenya, or I was in Costa Rica, when people say, oh, Bitcoin Park, that is so cool. I'm like, why do you think it's cool? They're like, it just is. I just, like I hear the stories of this, that, or the other thing, and I just want to come visit. I'm like, holy crap, man. That's just like, I mean, like to your point when Quentin, like, out there when, from Reed and all these other guys that were doing their conversations about their meetups and how they leverage content. They're like, oh yeah, we take the Me Premier Bitcoin content and blah, blah. And you're like, I don't even know who that dude is. That's so freaking cool. So it's a unconventional business model, having it community-based first, where you're just so focused on the mission and the culture. And if you can have enough runway and have enough discipline, there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, and I think it's funny how, despite us being a nonprofit, you guys being a for-profit, like we both work for the community, right? That's who we're here to serve, and if we don't, then we'll be punished for it, and if we do, then we'll be rewarded for it. And it's such a fascinating time with Bitcoin, because what both of these projects are doing, and what other people are doing with their own projects, is we're creating a proof of concept for an alternative future, right? This is not the normal way to do things. But if we could, the same way that if Bitcoin Park is successful, will encourage other people to, maybe they'll modify it in some way, but kind of learn from that model. And that's already happening, right? There's other projects that have kind of like, they're doing their own thing, but they're inspired by it. And it's happened with some Bitcoin education projects as well. Like, oh, that's a cool concept. That's a cool model. Like, we want to do something similar in our own community, in our own place. And that is the potential that we all have now as people that live in this fascinating time in human history with this incredibly powerful tool, is we get to decide how that is incorporated, right? We get to, again, to reimagine what's possible. Like, this is all we're creating proof of concepts for an alternative future, a better future. I think a better future.
Totally. So if I can riff on a couple things. One is I love it's like I have 4 children, 6, 4, 3, and 2. And people are like, well, how do you get like all this stuff? You have other businesses and so on. I say no to a lot of things. And then I also, I don't think a lot of people value their time in the same way they value their Bitcoin. What's more scarce than Bitcoin? Time. What's actually more scarce than time is actually time with our children right now. So I've got like 15 units. Yeah, thank you. It's like, all right, I want to live to 160, straight up. I'm doing it. Real talk. And I look at it in like 4 quarters, 0 to 40, 40 to 80, 80 to 120, 120 plus. 120 plus bonus time. I'm in my 40 to 80 period of time. But within that window of time, I have those 4 kids at those ages, and I probably have like 15 years of livable time with them. And so again, like I call myself rod-tarded. I like simplify everything as simple as possible. And it's like, all right, these units, the 6-year-old, 6 of those 15 are already gone. Because I say 15, she'll probably be in the house till like 18. But when she's like 15 with a car or 16 with a car, she's probably gone like 80% of the time, want to hang out with friends and not want to snuggle with daddy, right? So then I'm like, all right, between the like 2 and the 7, 8 range is like my most maximizing time. So I'm volunteered to like coach every single sports team. So I said, hey, I'll be the head coach, assistant coach, chief, cheerleader, whatever you need me. Now I'm like the t-ball coach, the 2 soccer coaches, and like a bunch of stuff. And the reason why I bring this up is like especially the meetup organizers and educators, is to be able to figure out your time and compartmentalize it such that it can compound into the things you really want to focus on. That's why we've simplified the Bitcoin Park business model just to individual members, which is our core focus, annual upfront, here's the value. You take the value and apply it. Like, that's why I also call Bitcoin Park more of a platform, and I think that's my similarity with you guys. It's how best for you to leverage it. Here's our Bitcoin Park schedule of all of our open and free meetups. Then we have these different paid summits that are focused and highly curated. Then we do a bunch of other things here as well. So I don't know why I went on that riff, but this is why. Because I've heard a lot of people wanting to start their own spaces. I am so happy and inspired, and I think to your point, where it's like, dude, I want to learn and see what they're doing that's a little different, like Alex and Presidio Bitcoin. I learned yesterday that they're doing a lot of these hackathons, overnight hackathons with Berkeley and Stanford. I'm like, dang, that's a really cool idea. That's interesting because we had one Vanderbilt student that got a Summer of Bitcoin internship, then got a Wolf internship, and it was like really cool to see his career growth. Maybe we can do something and emulate that as well. Also seeing a lot of spaces that are just popping up, and I'm like, it's like my kids. You want them to be better than you, but as an entrepreneur, you're like, just go get a simple 9-to-5 job and be comfortable, please. Don't do all the crazy shit that I'm doing, because this is like not for the faint of heart. Because you got to be not only super disciplined, but you also got to get lucky as all get out. So these third spaces, if you want to have conversations around this, I can talk you through that. I would just say think in epochs, think in epochs, but plan in hours. What does that mean? Like, manage your costs, manage your time to the like 15-minute increment blocks are on my calendar. That's how I manage my calendar. I wake up every morning at 4:20. You don't have to do this, by the way. 4:25 in the morning. I go get a coffee. 4:30 to 6:30 is my time. Actually, one of my kids woke up today at 5. I was like, immediately go back to bed. This is daddy time. Because I need to get my one big thing out of the way, then help them with the kids. So again, going back to that time with the kids, it's like always taking them to school, always doing the breakfast with them, always, for the most part, picking them up from school and doing dinner time, bath time, bedtime routine. So value your time. I'll get off my rant.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and something as you were talking less about the time, but more about, seeing how other people are innovating in their own way in a physical space. One of my favorite thoughts or phrases around Bitcoin, comparing it to the world that we have and the world that we currently have compared to the world that we might have, is fiat is zero sum, right? Fiat is competitive and Bitcoin is collaborative. In the world that we currently live in, often for one person to win, someone has to lose. And Bitcoin is a paradigm shift in that we could all win, right? Like, if what they're doing in San Francisco or Denver or some other physical space, like they have a good idea, great for them, also good for you, right? And it's the same with kind of the point of today. If somebody has figured out a better way to educate their peers, their community, whatever, like, we all win when we share that.
Totally. That's why it goes back to time and energy, and then the focus, especially you educators out there, figuring out your why, I think is really important. It's fun to be in Bitcoin and working in Bitcoin, but figuring out why you love doing it, such that yesterday we talked about 2 big words for me were consistency and showing up. Being consistent with hosting your meetups, doing your events and such, and then just showing up for natural spontaneity to be able to bump into somebody and be like, holy smokes, like Curtis coming in, driving, second furthest person driving in, by the way, and being like, I had no idea what I was going to go into last night for that meetup from this guy who played a significant role in overthrowing Robert Mugabe, the dictator in Zimbabwe. I mean, that's just like insane. And we got to do that in Bitcoin. So, yeah.
So maybe in the spirit of the Unconference, which is, meant to be interactive and participatory and really blur the lines between the stage and the audience, I'm wondering if anybody has a question for either myself or Rod.
I got a question for Rod. I'm interested in a membership model for a nonprofit. What would your advice be for going around that?
Yeah, so I think, and Steve Myers is really good at this, the BDK Foundation, which is founded here at Bitcoin Park, Nashville, Tennessee, shout out. They have a 501c6, which is, I think, a membership model. And so they announced yesterday CleanSpark, Proton, and AnchorWatch are now company sponsors or members of that. So I think I just jam with Steve. I think he's got some good, and then just I would research on the 501c6 side. Because then it's like, there's a really interesting side on the member and as well as individual donors, because you can figure out different tiers. And I think that's what Steve's done a really good job with BDK. It's like, this is a 25K tier, this is the 50K tier, this is a 100K tier. I mean, sure, if someone was donating, like, I want to donate $10 million, I don't think he's going to say no to that. But being able to group them and have a depth across the board without having any dependency on one of them. And that was the big thing, especially with the park model. I didn't want to be like kissing the ring of one person to be like, please, John, mi familia, I need you to renew, or this place is like dead. And then always being like, is he in a good mood, or is he like, my benevolent dictator or anything like that? I'd rather just be doing the mission of Bitcoin Park, providing the best experience that I would want to have, and if that's good enough, and I'll continue to hold myself at the highest standard, I think good things will happen. So that's not the way, hopefully I answered your question, but there's a lot of resources out there.
Yes, thank you.
Steve?
Yeah, Steve Myers, not mandatory on Twitter. He's unbelievable. He's here local. He should be around the park, but he's the best. Contributor for the BDK, the Bitcoin Dev Kit project.
I have a question. So I'm not completely 100% familiar with everything in regards to being Premier Bitcoin, but maybe my understanding is that there's a curriculum, right?
Yeah.
My question around the curriculum is like, over time, as you've kind of unleashed this open, like letting people just play with this and use it how they will, have you been able to collect feedback and make, is there one straight curriculum, or have you found that like the curriculum can have different formats for different cultures?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have multiple curriculum, and the longer term plan is to kind of build out an open source library focused on empowerment for people who are unfamiliar with Bitcoin. But the flagship product is the Bitcoin diploma there, and then we have an intro course, which is just like the Bitcoin diploma squished into one session, basically. Those are kind of the two primary things that people use. And what we have found, and it's evolved quite a bit with time, so we built it kind of by happenstance. We started I'm going to give some deeper context here, but we started in 2021 in El Salvador, and we just had an intro course, which is different from our intro course now. It's very basic. And then we had an opportunity, because at the time there was a lot of curiosity about Bitcoin education, but there wasn't any Bitcoin education infrastructure in El Salvador. So some school directors actually reached out to us in early 2022. We were only working for a few months at that time. And one school in particular had an existing format where students could choose they had to complete like, I don't know, 3 diplomas or something. They had a couple of different diplomas that they could choose from, and the format was it was a 10-week program. So they're like, hey, we'd love to have a Bitcoin diploma. Can you guys, like, and we see you guys are educating about Bitcoin here, so can you build something for us? And we did, but we built it very quickly, right? We had from that like question, can you guys build like a 10-week program for us, to when the first students was like 5 weeks later. And we didn't have a team to build it. We didn't, like, zero. We had no money, we had nothing, so we really scrambled and did the best we could, and I think we did a great job considering the circumstances, but we did not open source that, right? We taught that for 10 weeks. 10 weeks later, other schools were contacting us, so we actually doubled the number of schools and the number of students that we were teaching every 10 weeks. And we used that feedback to improve it, and it was that V3, the third edition, which was later in 2022, that we're like, okay, this is probably good enough to open source now and let people go with it. And initially, like, open sourcing is incredible, right? Like, it has led to, had we not open sourced that, you probably would have never heard of Meet Merit Bitcoin. You wouldn't probably be at this event, right? We wouldn't have this event because we wouldn't have this international presence. We would just be this local project in one place doing cool stuff, but that would kind of be our ceiling. Open source, and just like kind of a rant on the value of open source. It is, again, that better potential future where we could all help each other and build off of each other, which is very different from closed source. Closed source is fiat, open source is Bitcoin. But anyway, what we found was there was a greater curiosity and desire for this than we anticipated, and people started to translate it into their local languages. I think Korean was we did English and Spanish, and the first one outside of that was just some Bitcoiners in South Korea translated it, and then some other people started to do that, and then we leaned into it and we tried to create like an infrastructure for it. But another thing that we found, we got some requests from people like, hey, like, I love this work, but it would be great if it could be a little bit more of X, because that would resonate better with our community. Whatever that is, it could be a variety of different things. And so what we've tried to do with each iteration, we've tried to improve it to make it easier for people to translate, and that's just like some logistical stuff like file formatting and sharing best practices and all that, but also for people to kind of mix and match, right? So it's, just as an example, I don't know, is anybody here from Air BTC? No? Okay. So they were considering, or we talked about with them, put in the Bitcoin diploma in all the, all their rentals.
Like the Bible?
Yeah. It's a great idea, right? Our Lord and Savior Satoshi, right? But they were like, oh, and there should be something about Air BTC in the Bitcoin diploma. And we're like, well, maybe, but like not because you guys are going to do something with it. That has nothing to do with whether or not we mention it. But if you want to write like a 11th week, or you want to add something at the end, you can. And other people that like, hey, this if we mention a wallet or an exchange, and it's like, well, that's not available. Like, these are the wallets and exchanges that are available. And where I'm teaching, it's like, cool, change it. And over the course of each iteration of the Bitcoin diploma, at this point, it's kind of a yearly edition. So that's, there's a 2025 edition. There will be a 2026. With each one, we try to make it easier for people to modify it on their own to make it better fit the community that they're teaching, because that's actually a lesson that we've learned with time, is the community focus, right? Who is the best person to teach someone about Bitcoin, it's someone from that same community, someone that looks like that person, someone that speaks like that person, someone that has similar life experiences as that person. They're going to connect better. They're going to relate better. So we want people to we want to create the framework, but we actually want each community to fill in the details, if that makes sense, or at least give them the option. Like, you don't have to, right? But you can if you want to, and some people find it useful. And I was going to go off on a different tangent. I've forgotten.
Okay. One or two more questions.
I had one. It's a word I hear a lot at Bitcoin, but I'll just kind of throw the word and maybe you can riff on it a bit, was empowerment.
Yeah.
How does it look at the park and in Bitcoin? It's a great word, but
So this is like freestyle, right? That's an interesting idea where there's people on the stage and people just say a word like empowerment or like community and like yeah.
I cannot rap.
Well, all right. I guess we won't rap then.
And on the empowerment side, I will say what's really been cool is creating a space, creating a thing that I wanted to see, which was the initial like kind of framework of the Bitcoin meetup here in Nashville, which was program centric with a fireside chat or a multiple panel, and then a social component where there was like meetups were social or they were super technical. There wasn't like the real in between type of deal. And then seeing that just, blossom, right? And then we have this third space, and then seeing people raise their hand to say, hey, would it be cool if I did this? And like a Scott Porter was like, hey, would it be cool if I did a 101? Now Drew Pendleton, who's here, who's going to be speaking later, he wants to do a 101 here. Ben Hyman, who's another Bitcoin Park member, he is leading a Lightning study group here at the park with member. Actually, no, it's open to the community. I mean, River and a bunch of other guys here are participating in that. And then it empowers like Steve Myers, who I mentioned before. They're focused really hardcore on Rust and Bitcoin. And now they host a Rust specific meetup that has something to do with Bitcoin, because like 80% of the developers that are going to that Rust meetup here at the park are Bitcoiners. So they kind of push Bitcoin on these guys. But in terms of, Pablo, your point around empowerment, it's like really cool to see the platform that we're providing and allowing others to take advantage of, and really leverage it.
Yeah. I'm going to answer your question, Pablo, about empowerment. I'm going to do a rap, if that's okay. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not doing a rap.
I was about to say, let's go. Cook, John.
But I remembered what I was going to say previous to Pablo's question, so I'm just going to say that quick and then go on to empowerment. So a really cool example of the best person to teach is somebody from that community, and so they could kind of shape it in a way that resonates best with them. One real world example of that is we have a couple of teachers that were actually the star students of literally the second Bitcoin diploma that we ever taught. So this is 2022, and it was in a high school. And they graduated the Bitcoin diploma the same month that they graduated high school. And again, they were the star students. They were like super keen on it. They just wanted to learn everything about Bitcoin. So we hired them. And the next year, they went back to the high school that they just graduated from, and they taught all of their former peers and all of their former students, their former, like, the administration of the school, and they related to them in a way like a year ago, I was sitting in that chair in the place that you were in. So they knew the examples to use. They knew like what analogy would be understood. And that's a recipe that we found to be really useful and effective. Empowerment. So I think the way that we tried to lean into that word empowerment, which is so important, is we very much try to teach people how to think rather than teaching them what to think. That is our ethos, and that should be embedded into the materials that we produce, but that's also something that we try to internally do, right? So like go even further, like, okay, so the workbook is designed in such a way that we're not telling people Bitcoin's the best money, this is the best exchange, this is the best wallet. It's like, no, these are Bitcoin wallets, and these are properties of Bitcoin wallets. These are exchanges, what exchanges do. These are different exchanges that you could choose from, but the student themselves ultimately decide what works best for this situation, because again, it's not about dictating to anyone. It's about giving people more optionality and choices and more agency in their own life. And then we also tried to do that internally, like with the team itself, which is tough. We try to be empowerment focused, and we try to be as decentralized as possible, and that leads to challenges, right? There's one thing that I've kind of a problem that I didn't anticipate was sometimes people could be too empowered, right? And it's like they have a good, within the team, they'll have a great idea and then they'll just like do it, right? They'll execute on it and be like, wow, that's amazing. But like also like that's you didn't do this other thing that you were supposed to do because you did this incredible thing, but it's an interesting exercise to like really like empower everyone. Like what does that lead to, right? If we are all truly empowered, like what sort of like friction does that create? Which is, just something that I didn't really anticipate, but it's amazing. So within the team, to give an example, yesterday I talked about meetups, how we've expanded our meetups pretty significantly. We went from 1 a month in San Salvador to now 5 a month in San Salvador, and we added 5 new cities just in the past few months. That is not because myself or Quentin, who's our operations lead, told that person like, hey, let's have 5 meetups a month. Let's have 5 cities. We had these general directives that we want to be more grassroots focused, that we want to build communities. And this person who was the organizer of the 1 meetup per month that we had was like, all right, we're gonna need more meetups then. And he just organized it himself. Nobody told him to do that, right? We have this general vision and mission, and he filled in the details. And I think that's what empowerment is, right? Like it's important that we all have these broad strokes that we agree on, but then you leave it up to the individual to fill in the details. Yeah.
I don't know if we have time for one more question.
One more question.
Oh, yeah.
But it kind of leads into that. A lot of people here in the room are either thinking about starting up a new Bitcoin company or a new meetup in some town or something like that. How do you guys think about, Bitcoin's kind of like the wild, wild west, where there's so many opportunities. Like once you come up with that idea of what you want to focus on in Bitcoin, how do you guys think about staying focused on that? Because the better you get at it, the more opportunities come from each direction, which like you were saying, you did this really great job over here, but then you didn't do what we asked you to do over here. So how do you keep the team focused in one direction without all these tangents? Repeat the question.
How do I keep you focused on getting your shit done?
Yeah, that seemed really targeted at you.
So, no, because creativity loves constraints, and we have one big number that we're tracking against this year, and honestly, I think as Henry David Thoreau, simplify. There's so many fucking shiny objects. I mean, especially with Bitcoin Park, I am presented with some of the most amazing opportunities in the world. It just like saying no is such a superpower, and then staying focused on like what is that one thing you want to accomplish this year that will make it such a home run. The second thing is focus on where you get the most energy. There's like what do you call it? Stools? Legs to the stool? Yeah, okay, thank you. That's why I'm rod-tarded, and that's why I hired Rob. There's when I'm looking at opportunities, am I going to have fun? Am I going to learn something? Am I going to make money? You know, and there's always going to be a slight imbalance. So I'm going to like not make as much money, but I'm going to learn a boatload, and I'm going to have a lot of fun, or like, you know, all those things. So just being disciplined and being comfortable in the uncomfortable of saying no to a lot of things, even though you're like, man, I just said no to that because I need to focus on this.
Yeah, another great question. That is such an important lesson that I think many people don't understand, right? It's definitely something that we've had to deal with as we've grown. Then so many people come at us with actually great ideas and great opportunities, but we need to say no to it, right? If you try to do everything for everyone, you end up doing nothing for no one. And I think the key is to have that defined vision and mission. This is what we're doing. This is all we're doing, right? So if it doesn't fit into this narrow spectrum, then the answer is no. And that's so much easier said than done, because I'm sure it's the same. It's like, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. Like
Rob's like, I want to build flying cars. I want to go do this. I'm like, buddy, we can do that in another life. But that's why you want to hire a guy like Rob, which is.
To give a better example, though, I was going to say that you have to lead from the front.
Yes.
Especially in startup, if you give people the tools and you model it for them, it's very easy to want to keep tempo with that. So you do a great job giving the tools and modeling it every day.
Me or John?
I'm looking at you.
Take the credit.
Take the content, Rod.
It felt like he was looking at me. we're in the same like sight line. So I'm like.
This was fantastic. I thank you so much. I know we're at time at 12 o'clock, and we got to go do a podcast right now. Anyone listen to the 256 Foundation podcast, by the way? Let's go. We're going to go live here in a second. You want to come on with us today? Okay, come on. So thank you very much, John. Really appreciate this.
Thank you. Thank you.